He shoved the black man into the defendant's chair and smirked, as if the case had been decided before a word was spoken. No lawyer at his side, no advocate in his corner, just the hush of a room waiting for him to break. But he didn't not with his voice, not with his face. He sat in that old gray suit, hands folded, gaze steady, like a man who'd known all along how this day would play out. What nobody realized was the truth: that courtroom, that judge, those swaggering cops, they weren't in control at all. The director of the FBI was sitting in front of them, and the place was already surrounded. If you're thinking this sounds like a story, think again. Sometimes silence is what forces justice through doors that have been locked for years. You ever notice how dignity never needs to yell? I remember that day the way the golden sun barely made a dent in the chill of that courthouse. People didn't come to watch justice. They came to see their beliefs confirmed, to feel safe in a story they already believed. The man in the gray sootlets, call him Malcolm Drexler, walked in straight-backed, not defiant, not cowering, just unbothered. There was a trace of red around his wrists, the kind you get from cuffs worn too tight for too long. He didn't have a lawyer. The seat beside him, empty, spoke louder than any opening statement. He didn't look scared. He didn't even look inconvenienced. Front row, Officers Garrison and Finley lounged like they owned the place. Garrison gnawing on a toothpick, Finley leaning in to crack a joke that never needed a punchline. People in the gallery whispered, called Malcolm a troublemaker, arrogant, but he kept his eyes forward. Not challenging, not submissive, just watching. The clerk read out the charges: obstruction, disorderly conduct, refusing to comply during a traffic stop. No drugs, no violence, just a man who'd asked too many questions and moved too slowly for someone else's comfort. Garrison, grinning, let his voice cut through the room. He thinks that suit's gonna save him. Malcolm turned just slightly, not to look at Garrison, but to look through him, and said, voice low, words simple, I didn't fight. I just didn't kneel. Yeah, that landed. The whole room shifted. Even folks who came to see him lose sat up a little straighter, trying to make sense of what just happened. The gallery included Odessa, an older woman who'd seen too many trials and too few truths in Millstone. She leaned forward, curious, not judgmental. A young boy tugged at his grandmother's sleeve and asked, "Why isn't he scared?" She didn't answer at first, just watched Malcolm like she was waiting to see history happen again. When the judge finally entered, Judge Claremont Stern, stern by name and nature, the atmosphere shifted again. Prosecutor Lorna Creed was all clipped heels and tighter lips. She played a short body cam video for the court, grainy and short, 20 seconds. Malcolm standing calm, officer barking orders, a sudden jerk, then darkness. Lorna said, "You see?" Refused a lawful order. Escalated the situation. Malcolm didn't raise his voice. The moment you clip this video, you clip the truth with it. He looked at the jury, at the crowd. You showed 20 seconds. The stop lasted nearly 5 minutes. Where's the part where I asked why I was pulled over? Where's the part where I said nothing and was called a threat anyway? Garrison muttered to Finley that Malcolm was just dressing up what happened, but Odessa spoke up, her voice steady. That's not twisting. That's unlearning what they've always told us. The judge shot her a look, but said nothing. Malcolm sat. The room grew quieter, almost reverent. You could feel something shifting, even if nobody could put a name to it yet. The judge warned Malcolm to keep his words within the scope of the charges. He replied, everything I've said is within the scope of what brought me here. Whether you choose to listen is another matter. The gallery was restless. Garrison, unable to sit still, accused Malcolm of manipulating the room. All this calm, all this silence. He's playing innocent, twisting the mood, and you're letting him. Malcolm turned to him, calm as ever. No, I'm letting you expose it. Garrison didn't have an answer to that. That's when something unexpected happened. A woman stood and said quietly, I was there. I saw what happened. The deputy moved to hush her, but the moment stuck. Silence, not as surrender, but as strategy. Suddenly, the clerk noticed something odd. No record from Malcolm Drexler. No license, no address, no court history. The judge brushed it off as a glitch, but you could feel the tension spike. Reporters whispered, cameras shifted, the live stream chat started flying. Who is this guy? Is that the director? Even folks in the courtroom looked at Malcolm differently. The prosecutor pressed Malcolm for his full name. The system came up empty. The judge got rattled, but the questions kept coming. Outside the courtroom, someone posted an old conference photo of Malcolm in a gray suit beside the president, quiet, watching, not on the schedule. Inside, whispers turned into something heavier. A reporter urged her cameraman, zoom in, get his face. Garrison started to look worried. The judge barked, this is not a game of identity, but nobody was listening to her anymore. Malcolm didn't explain the missing records. He just let the silence do its work. You know what I mean? Sometimes a lack of noise says more than 100 speeches. Judge Claremont tried to move the hearing along, but she was losing the room. Malcolm asked to represent himself. The judge agreed. He opened a folder and started reading names into the record. Terrence Holloway, Camille Rodas, Marcus Jennings. Every one of them black, everyone dismissed or silenced by the system. He didn't editorialize. He let the facts speak. I didn't come here to prove I was innocent. I came to see if your court was. That line, yeah, that happened. The room went still. Even the judge paused before responding. In the back, a man in a charcoal suit, Isaac Holloway, closed his notebook, folded it away. He watched, not like a spectator, but like a man who'd seen other institutions crack. Malcolm placed a sealed envelope on the table. Because I brought evidence, he said. The room held its breath as the judge announced she was ready to render judgment. Then softly, Malcolm said, call my witness. People looked around, confused. Isaac Holloway stood up, walked forward with the slow confidence of someone who'd never been told no. He showed his badge. Deputy Director, FBI Internal Affairs. Garrison erupted, but it was too late. Isaac didn't flinch. This man, he said, is not the defendant. He is the sitting director of the FBI. He came here to see this courtroom fail for himself. Nobody argued after that. The story had changed. Isaac submitted evidence, full footage, full reports. The screen showed what really happened. Malcolm calm, officer escalating, the blow, the blood, the shouts from bystanders. Garrison's voice, desperate, stop resisting, to a man who never moved. When the truth played, nobody cheered. Justice didn't need applause. It needed to be seen. Garrison was arrested on the spot, not with violence, but with quiet authority. Judge Claremont tried to salvage the proceedings, but people weren't looking to her anymore. Reporters turned cameras toward the crowd, people who saw themselves in Malcolm's story. Outside, the news spread fast. Clips of Malcolm's calm, of Isaac's badge, of Garrison in cuffs. Stories poured in, old cases reopened, judges recusing themselves, people feeling heard for the first time. Camille Rodas and Marcus Jennings came forward, sharing what silence had cost them. Odessa told a reporter, sometimes silence does more than shouting ever could. When Malcolm finally left the courthouse, he didn't wave or make a statement. He just walked, the crowd parting. No one tried to stop him. People simply watched, understanding that the real power in that moment was the dignity of someone who never had a shout to be heard. Even the judge, leaving by a side door, was invisible now. Malcolm walked to the end of the street, paused, then climbed into a car. No fanfare, no security detail, just a man stepping out of the storm, having left a crack in the sky behind him. That night, people shared the story, Malcolm's stillness, his words, the shift in the system. Not with anger, but with hope. A reminder that sometimes the loudest echoes come from the quietest rooms. If this story made you feel something, if you believe justice matters, even when it moves in silence, drop a comment, share your take. What does real justice look like to you? Who gets to decide when the silence finally breaks? Speak your truth. The conversation's only just begun.